Hi everyone, this is Dr. Schroder with this week's video introduction to week number 3 of our course in evidence-based practice. And in week number 1, we started with this discussion of what is evidence-based practice. And each of you identified a problem, some sort of a problem that you could look to the nursing research and nursing literature to help address. And then in this week, the primary task and the discussion question was to take that problem and develop this thing called the a PICO question or a PICO statement or PICOT statement. PICO, of course, is the population, intervention, comparison, outcome, and timeline. And so I've given each of you feedback on your PICO, and you've been busy giving each other feedback on your PICO, and it's important, very important, extremely important that you review my feedback because that's going to become a big basis of your paper this week. Your first paper is going to be due the end of this week. I'm going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But the important thing to take away is that it's very important anytime that you're doing an evidence-based practice project to have a pretty good idea or have a very good idea as to what is going to be the intervention that you're going to implement. How are you going to compare that with? And any time that you're trying to see if one thing is better than another, you always have to have something to compare it with. So it's important to have that the intervention to be specific, and then to have your method of comparison also fairly specific. And of course, your outcomes need to be a specific outcome. Usually it's either an increase or a decrease of something. And so if I've given you feedback that your PICO maybe is a little too general, for example, you have an intervention that essentially says that you've got a population of either patients or nurses, and that you're going to be implementing something, an education or a policy that's going to result in better outcomes, for example. It's too general. It's like, what outcome are you going to be looking at? What specifically is going to be the intervention that you're going to be looking at? And all of that has to be based in the literature. That's really important here. And so in week 3, your paper is going to be where you're going to be, well, think of it this way. Think that you're going to be planning a new intervention, that you reviewed the literature, and that the literature shows that this thing that you've been talking about in your PICO this week, this is going to be something that you're going to implement in your hospital or implement in your organization. So you're going to be talking very specifically about the research that you found to identify that this is the best practice to do. And so it requires that you're going to have to do a literature review. And again, I've left instructions on how to find literature in the library. You need to be using the APU library for this. If you have another library, say at work, if you have a medical library and you want to use a librarian there, that's perfectly fine. But you're not going to be able to rely just on doing a Google search and finding some of the more common websites. That's not going to really be able to justify the level of research is going to be required for this class. You have to find articles and research articles that meet one of several different criteria level. And I have posted in the class, there is posted in the materials, a article on a critical appraisal of the literature. And I have also included templates in the class for the evaluation templates that you're going to use to evaluate the literature. Now, your paper essentially involves using the discussion that we've had in class thus far to give some background on your problem and identify your PICO statement, and then conduct a literature review. And there's very specific instructions in the paper on how to do that literature review, and you're going to identify a total of 5 articles, 5 pieces of literature. Now, you'll be finding more than that, but the idea here is that you find as much literature and many articles and studies as you can find related to your particular problem and intervention, and then you're going to assess them using those assessment tools that I have posted in class. That information is going to be summarized in a table. Part of this paper requires that you insert a table into your paper. And I have left instructions for you on how to do that table of evidence matrix. Table of evidence is typically called a TOE, a TOE. And it's a way that researchers and that people that are involved in evidence-based research, or excuse me, evidence-based practice implementation, it is a tool that is used to take information from articles and basically summarizing, putting it all into one table. And so I've indicated what should be indicated in those tables and information on how to create a table. If you've never created a table in Word before, it's actually very simple. The table should be inserted into the Word document. In other words, it's not something that you're going to do and attach as a separate document. It should be included within your document. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. You can post the questions in the discussion forums, or if you want to send me an email, for some help on that, that's perfectly fine. I'm more than happy to meet with everybody, either individually or as a class, if everybody would like to get together at a particular time, where I can come up with different times where I can have a video chat with everybody and help with some of these more technical aspects. But please review the rubric and please review the assignments for this particular paper very closely. Remember, this is a writing class, so that's very important. And for the feedback that I've left you in your discussion questions as well, remember when you're writing your discussion questions, you're being also graded on your writing, not just the content of what you write, because this is writing class. So the bar is raised a bit from previous classes. I'll be giving you feedback again in class this week as you write your discussion questions. Remember that you need to be writing, think in terms of like a mini paper, where you're going to have an introduction, and then a body of the paper, and then a conclusion. It's not going to be a real long paper. I mean, these discussion questions are not meant to be like, several thousand words. But they do need to evidence some writing skill and writing ability and APA. That is going to be graded from here on out, along with all the along with the content that you write. That also holds true for your responses. Remember, your responses should look to add to the discussion, and not just give necessarily personal feedback or personal opinions, or feedback that is necessarily supportive, but also think about bringing new materials, or pose new questions, or alternate point of views. Those are all things that are good for the discussions. Remember, discussion throughout the week was required for full credit, and I'll be giving you feedback along with each other in your discussion questions this week. The discussion question this week kind of takes us away from the topic of evidence-based practice specifically, and we talk about the assignment, as we call it, the snake oil assignment. And in this discussion, what you're going to do is you're going to be reviewing a list of websites. We have a list of websites. I believe there's 20 of them. And you're going to identify those that you think are particularly good and have accurate information, and those that are what we call snake oil. In other words, they look like they're good, or they look like they might have good information, but really they don't. They're either inaccurate, or they are geared to simply sell a product, or they are geared to not give information that is really meant to be peer-reviewed in any way, or it's not peer-reviewed, not based in the science, but is really information that you would want to steer people away from. And this is particularly important when we're talking about patient education and educating staff. Just because a website looks great, it comes from a .org website, does not mean that it is necessarily has appropriate information, that it is good to use. So that's going to be the focus of our question this week. So please review your syllabus, review that assignment, and if you have any questions, please let me know. It's something that you should have started by now, because it does take a while to complete this assignment. So please let me know if you have any questions, and I'd be more than happy to guide you as much as I can, or any way that I can. And of course, then your reflection this week is going to be talking about best practices. What are Christ's best practices, and how do you incorporate those in your life? So please review the prompt for that as well. And I will have the grading for your discussion questions as well as the research, using the library for research paper. Those should be done by the end of the week. I'll be grading those throughout the week, and most of them I should probably have done by, I'm guessing, Friday or so. So I'd just like to enter in prayer and say, Dear Lord, thank you so much. We've had another great week. Thank you for a wonderful Thanksgiving week. Help this to be a good week, Lord. Help us to keep focused. Help us to always focus on you. And help us to find evidence of you in our lives, and may others be able to see that evidence. Keep us strong. Keep it safe. Always, Lord, be there to guide us. And may we always keep you in the middle of our class and in the middle of all we do. I pray these things in your holy name. Amen. And with that, I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I had a great Thanksgiving with my family personally. It's been a great week, and so I hope that yours has been as well. Keep working hard. Keep at it. I know there's a lot on your plate right now, but the end will be in sight. So I look forward to giving you feedback. Look forward to participating in class, and we'll see you in the discussion forums.